Hello in England, doing another art book. This book is titled Modern Masterpieces. It is volume 1. Sorry, it's volume 2 of a publication of 2 volumes with an outline of art by Frank Rutter. So this book is a large book, large on average. It has a cloth linen covering. So the fact it's large, the fact it's got the linen is a good sign. Often means it's going to be a good book. This book was published in 1936. And in the book you've got black and white pictures and text describing lots of different artists. And intermingled you've got cards, coloured cards with colour plates. On the front of each colour card there is a title. On the back of each card there is a dedication explaining about the picture, who did it, when they did it, what they did it for. And the thing about this book, which I find interesting, is that in 1936, before the Second World War, this contained what people thought of, experts thought of, as modern art. So, for example, in this book there are Picassos, and Picasso was born in 1880 in Malaga, and his first exhibition in England was in the 20s. So Picasso to these people was a young man, and his art was fresh. And of course, looking back from 2024, the Picasso work is ancient and has been superseded by the rubbish from Hirst and Banksy and Warhol and Pollock and all those sort of people. And people aren't talking so much about Picasso anymore, other than the fact they're expensive. People are living with Banksy's and Hirst pictures and Rothko pictures. And the volume of production by these artists and the fact they're colourful, big pictures, artistic stunts, has pushed Picasso down the ranking to a historical artist. So that the band of modern art, in terms of time, the timeline is always moving forwards. So you've got contemporary art, you've got modern art, you've got abstract art, you've got living artists, contemporary art. I like to speak to living artists and explain to them that when they die, their work is worth more money. It's hilarious discussion to have with someone. And there are modern artists, contemporary artists, living artists who do old-fashioned art. So they're doing reenactments of older versions, older styles of art. And there are, of course, modern artists doing new forms of art. There is digital art, for example. So it's a minefield, and it's desperately confusing. So we're going to go into the book from 1936, and it shows us what was exciting the scholars in England and what was considered new art, modern art. And in this book there is some stuff painted before 1900, which is Victorian, which is contained and described as modern masterpieces. So we really are going back somewhere. It's too much to sort of talk about, really, so I'm going to really skim through it. They're mentioning many modern artists, and this is an example of a picture which is a modern version of a Gainsborough, and a Gainsborough really is a 18th century version of a French picture. So you've got a lot of regurgitation, and the regurgitation is not really very original by its nature. So we come to James McNeill Whistler. That's fairly original. The way the composition particularly. So there are some things in here which I do like. That is a picture I don't like. I'll explain why. That picture, called The Bent Tree, was painted between 1855 and 1860. It's a really old picture to be called modern, even then. But I've sold pictures by Dutch artists from the mid-17th century using that scene. It is a bluff with trees, with a plateau behind it, with a lake. So to me, it looks like an 18th century Dutch picture, other than the brushwork. And I just don't see it having any artistic or value or furnishing value at all. It's just so tedious. This one is another example of a picture I don't like. It's lovely colours and beautifully applied paint, impasto paint, lumpy paint, and it's technically beautiful. The mirror, for example, but it's such a depressing, sullen picture, and there's shade on the face. So I don't like it, and it's not commercial, I would say. So there's lots of pictures. Everyone has their own opinion. And the next person looking at this book will probably pick the opposite pictures. That's a George Braque, which is a great artist. Picasso, Norman Wilkinson. This is a lovely artist. And after this picture was done, which is a transatlantic plane, he was, in the Second World War, asked to help with the camouflage. And he designed the dazzle effect painting on warships to confuse the U-boats. I rate him very, very highly. He has a lovely clear signature, out of the corner. The oils have a texture. And I tried to buy one a few weeks ago. I went 3-4 times estimate, so I didn't get it in the end. I was quite sad. Fantastic. Diana of the Uplands. 1904. So this is just out of the Victorian era, Edwardian era. What we got is a woman standing on a hill. The hill has no trees on it. The trees have all been taken away, and the people, the farmers, have all been taken away, sort of Highland clearance style. And what the hill is for, it's a moor. It's for grazing sheep, and it's for the production of grouse and pheasants for hunting, and it's for the production of deer and stags for hunting in the open air, not in the trees. And those two lurchers or greyhounds are for hunting rabbits. So if she sees a rabbit or a hare, she lets go. She doesn't untie them. She lets go the straps, and they run off and they get the hare or the rabbit. So it's a hunting zone. That's what they were doing. So there's lots of interesting stuff. Picasso again. Picasso again. Cleverly done faces, using shade. Goes through to the war in art. Refugees fleeing the Germans. People camping in the roadside. Tractors, carts full of possessions. People running for their lives. The Somme. And then we have another picture not related to the war. Sir William Russell Flint, who was prolific and painted girls in nude and in semi-attire. Painted so many pictures. He probably could paint in his sleep or when he had his eyes closed. When I was a child at the auctions, if there was a naked lady by Sir William Russell Flint, the person who bought the picture would be greeted by a cacophony of giggling people and smirking people. We all thought it was rather amusing at the time. Salisbury Cathedral, wonderful English cathedral. I was christened in that church, and the council has stopped all the neighbouring buildings being too high, so it still sticks out. And if you drive over the hill towards Salisbury, over the down towards Salisbury, it is breathtaking even now. And Lincoln Cathedral has a tower, and the Tower of Lincoln Cathedral, I think it's Lincoln, was the tallest building in the world for a time span of 800 years. So we were good at church towers in those days. Paul Nash, not very exciting artist, but a good artist nevertheless. This is the Treaty of Versailles at Versailles. So we have the Hall of Mirrors, painted like a photograph, incredibly painted, so hard to paint gold. And then we have the figures signing, painted in an impressionistic manner, amongst which is a Sikh British Empire soldier in the British delegation. So there's lots of these pictures. Once you start looking at them, dwelling on them. This is Auguste Rodin. It shows St John the Baptist just calling people into the river. Simple but effective. We have a bronze by Jacob Epstein, who was an American English artist, sculptor, who sold a picture by him, an original picture in Malta this year. Many of his works show classical reclining figures, often with cloth and drapery. So ploughs, railway stations, that's another Epstein sculpture. They're distinctive. You can tell often they're Epstein from 6 foot away without looking at a signature. This is Nash, very bland. Of course, people in those days were looking for things other than what people are looking for now. This is another signing. This is the armistice signed on HMS Queen Elizabeth. So this is the Germans who are painted a rather pale skin, and you've got the British naval officers with swords, and then making the Germans sign the armistice, which is an agreement to cease fire, and then the surrender actually comes later. The official surrender document comes up afterwards. That's First World War, of course. So plenty of food for thought in these books, as always. This is a lovely selection of varied books. This is another one of these English pictures which I find confusing. It's an English picture by an English artist. We know who did it. We know when it was done, 1912. But it looks French to me. I can't help but think it looks French. You have these bentwood chairs, which are French chairs, Thonnet chairs. You've got a very informal, eager-looking waiter. Of course, it could be England, but it doesn't look English the way it's done. The artist wants it to look French so he can sell it. Let's be honest. The artist wanted to sell their works, and the French stuff was fashionable. This is 1907, a lovely picture, but a sad picture. You have captive birds, and you have a sad-looking girl. I mean, I can't understand why anyone would want to have that in their house. Horrible. This is a Victorian picture, 1899, considered modern in 1936. Paul Klee. So there is modern in here. This is Lawrence of Arabia by Augustus John. I was in Mallorca a few years ago and I went into the art gallery owned by the most famous living painter, English living painter in Mallorca. And I said to this gentleman, who's your favourite artist in the world? And he said, Augustus John. The back of the book we have a Salvador Dali, who I don't like. He was successful, and he had a very vivacious personality, and was popular. But aesthetically, there's something missing with all his pictures. They're garish. The pictures to me look like regurgitations of Hieronymus Bosch. This is a Ben Nicholson 1935 titled composition. Not a painting, it is a carved relief. So I would say in this whole book, you've got Paul Klee, you've got Ben Nicholson, perhaps Salvador Dali, and a few others as what I would call was modern art then. And there's all this other stuff which is contemporary art, and some of it was regurgitations of older forms of art. So it's very interesting to look back. That book is a lovely book for £6. I might keep this one. Thank you. Bye-bye.